We are at the top of the hour, and we have new projections at the 11 o'clock hour here in the East, 8 o'clock Pacific. NBC News projects that Hillary Clinton wins the state of California with its 55 electoral votes. Clinton also wins in Hawaii. Trump will win in Idaho when all the votes are counted. Clinton wins in Oregon. And NBC News projects that Clinton will win in the state of Washington. Let's see where that leads us now in the race to 270. Clinton climbs ahead now with 209, 172 to Trump. The drama continues. You're hearing the crowd there as we look at the map now appear with those states filled in, the ones that have been projected. You're hearing the crowd, a lot of folks in Democracy Plaza here at 30 Rock watching the giant monitors here and reacting as we make these calls. But that's the state of the map. There is the crowd right now this is the Clinton headquarters. They're reacting to those slew of calls that went her way, including the big one of California. Those are important calls for her, but as Chuck keeps reminding us, it doesn't undermine the fundamentals that they're working against right now, or working with on that March 270.
By the way, let's throw up Arizona. We do have another battleground. Arizona is living up to the hype. It is a battleground state. About half the vote, a little less than half the vote is in, or a little more than half the vote is in, and it's a three-point race. And you still have a lot out. I was looking at what counties are out. Savannah,
what counties are out? Okay,
Savannah.
Now we're getting into my home
All right, here. There's a lot
talk
out.
among yourselves.
Basically, all of Pima.
Well, that is huge for Hillary Clinton. Pima County is a liberal enclave in an otherwise fairly conservative state.
Pima is out at this point?
Pima, we still have a lot of Pima.
County.
We got half of Maricopa. Basically, what you're seeing there, that lead, that's Trump's lead in Maricopa. That's the gargantuan county that is Phoenix and every other place that goes into that state.
Now, Chuck, riddle me this. I mean, if Arizona were to flip, which it's a lean GOP right now, it's a lean Trump, but if it were to flip, does that change your math with Michigan?
No, what it does, it doesn't get. Look, it gives her. What it does do is she can lose Michigan and sweep those Nevada, New Hampshire, and Arizona, or she can afford to lose both Nevada and New Hampshire and have an Arizona. But she's not winning in Arizona, so let's not. But the point is, I did want to throw Arizona up there. Just yet another. It's funny. She did show some strength in some states that we didn't expect. But he's showing more strengths in more states.
What's so fascinating is there's this whole geographic term. It's Rust Belt versus Sun Belt. So if we don't know what will happen in Arizona, but if she's turning out the Hispanic vote in a big way and it's making a difference in a Nevada or in Arizona, but then the Rust Belt, he's turning out voters who have been traditionally Democratic in a lot of cases.
But look at the Sun Belt. By the way, look at the Sun Belt. You know, right now, we're looking at, I'm trying to figure out what blue state she's going to get. Right now, the Sun Belt, she's got New Mexico. I'm looking here.
Well, Nevada's a question mark.
Nevada's a question mark. And I think North Carolina and Florida appear to be leaning Trump. Georgia doesn't look like that's going to come through for her. There's a lot of vote out. It's taken Georgia forever to count its votes. That's why we've waited so long there. So, yes, she showed competitiveness in the Sun Belt. But it's not as if she turned any. I mean, she needed to have a margin for error. She needed to flip one of these Sun Belt states or keep the Sun Belt states with her.
She, in times gone by when she was feeling much more confident and it was looking like a 10-point race for her, she added a trip to Arizona, and people interpreted that as a huge sign of confidence. And some of her surrogates were there. Bernie Sanders was there.
Right now they're relieved they went to Arizona because they're desperate to make sure there's another state in play.
They're also looking at Wisconsin as a potential part of a path to victory. Can we show where we stand with Wisconsin right now? Wisconsin, here we go. Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes. Right. Trump leading there now, 49-46. 58% of the vote is in there. That is, according to Kristen Welker, we checked in with a while ago, this is part of what they see now as their path to victory through Wisconsin and Michigan.
There's still a lot out. About half of Dane County, that's Madison. That's a big one there. Milwaukee, most of Milwaukee is in. And that's something that has to, if you're
you want the margin in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
you need the suburbs of Milwaukee.
The point is that most of Milwaukee is in. Look, there's still plenty of vote out.
All right, we have a call to make a projection. It's the state of North Carolina. NBC News projects that Donald Trump will win in the state of North Carolina. That's 15 electoral votes. Here's how it is playing out right now. Trump with 51%, Clinton 46%. But again, we project that Donald Trump wins North Carolina. How does that change in the race to 270? There it is. Right now, Clinton standing at 209. That takes Trump to 187. 270, the number to win.
You remember Kellyanne Conway liked to talk about the core four? Their core four that the Trump campaign was talking about was Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, and Iowa. Right now, they're 3 for 3, although we haven't called Florida yet. But, I mean, Florida looks good for them. They've got North Carolina, got Ohio. They're leading in Florida. Iowa, by the way, is razor thin. So I think a lot of people had automatically assumed Trump was going to carry Iowa. That isn't the case. Let's put Iowa up. If you see there, look, she's hanging in there. The Democratic Party machine still existed there, and I think a lot of people just wrote off Iowa on her. And so, once again, we're like upended on something. This was one that we thought Trump was going to, exactly. And he still might, and there's still a lot of vote out, but she's hanging in there.
All right, I think we're going, did you say, let's go to Hallie Jackson. She's taking a closer look at this, one of the sideshows we're watching here, which is how the markets, the Dow futures, are reacting. Hallie?
Hey, Lester. Yeah, you've got kind of the main event over there, but we are keeping an eye on some of the business news, potential fallout that we're seeing. I'm here with Ali Velshi, who knows a thing or two about this. We're looking at the Dow, down more than 600 points.
Every time we talk, it's more. It's almost 700 now. Dow futures. If the Dow opened right now, it would open 700 points lower than what it closed at 4 o'clock today, and it's dropping as we're speaking.
Why?
The market, there's two reasons. One is the market didn't expect Donald Trump to win, and they don't like things they don't expect. But more seriously, investors have real reservations about what Donald Trump will do as president for business. Typically, businesses are thought to like Republicans more than Democrats. Historically, it's not necessarily true. Historically, markets have not done better under Republicans than they have under Democrats. And Donald Trump is talking about possibly trade wars. He's talking about tough talk with our trading partners. He's talking about lowering taxes, but a lot of people don't think he can achieve what he needs. He's talking about a deeper deficit. This is something he's never addressed. He says he's going to reduce the deficit because under him, the economy will grow 4, 5, 6%, he said in debates. Our economy is growing at about 2%. It would be near impossible to get it to 3. India struggles with 5, and China can't get to 6. And these are much faster growing economies. So people don't really believe he can get there. He may seem more business friendly than Hillary Clinton, but there's some sense that he doesn't have the wherewithal to actually do it. So they're very worried. And by the way, this is a global issue. Japan is selling off. Asian markets will sell off. It'll move into Europe because the world is going to be the beneficiary of a president who wants to renegotiate trade deals.
Ali Velshi, hang around. I'm sure this is a storyline we will be keeping our eye on. Lester?
We've got some movement now as we continue to watch the battle for the control of the U.S. Senate.
There was a very close race in Wisconsin. It was a rematch. Russ Feingold, the Democrat, against Ron Johnson, the incumbent Republican. And we're reporting, Chuck, that the Republican, Ron Johnson, has held on. This is obviously important in terms of whether or not the Democrats are going to get control of the Senate, but also what it might, again, portend about Wisconsin, a state we're watching very closely, a state that is in the must-win column now for Hillary Clinton.
I'm trying to do my math on the Senate here. With what's left, you got New Hampshire. So we're sitting here, Republicans at 48. If they hold Blunt, and if they hold, Toomey and Ayotte here, I think they get there. And they can retain majority at this. Right now, though, they're losing in Pennsylvania. I think New Hampshire's a total coin flip, and Blunt continues to be a coin flip. But this is basically an upset. But, can I just tell you, the Democrats did a poor job in some of their Senate recruiting. They got a bunch of retreads, and I never understood the decision to do this, but right now, all 3 retreads have lost.
Evan Bayh,
Russ Feingold, and Ted Strickland, former governor in Ohio. Okay, loss. Their winners may be new candidates, Katie McGinty or this Kander guy out of Missouri. Yeah.
All right, we are watching, continue to watch a razor-tight vote for president right now. We've got several states still outstanding as too close to call, including Florida, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina recently went into the Trump margin. Let's go to Andrea Mitchell right now at the Clinton headquarters, where I know they reacted to that slew of Clinton calls a few minutes ago. But again, we continue to watch those yellow states.
Well, there was obviously some considerable upset about North Carolina, because if North Carolina being one place where she went more than almost any place except Florida. That said, their hopes now reside in Michigan, in New Hampshire. A lot of hope that they can pull this through in New Hampshire. And also, as you were pointing out, the possibility of Arizona. They need to hold Wisconsin. I don't know how much of that vote. You say that Milwaukee is in, but Madison would obviously be a huge area. And if Madison is indeed out, that could be the balance of power. Regarding those Senate races, though, that is another huge blow. And the fact that Evan Bayh and Ron Wyden and Ted Strickland have not been able to capture those seats is such a setback. As Chuck was just saying, poor recruitment, and if Hillary Clinton wins, she will not have a stronger hand in the Senate. They may get control, but they won't have what they had hoped to have. Katie McGinty still has a chance in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is obviously the most important firewall of them all. But this is a night of great nervousness for Democrats. They feel that they underestimated the strength of Donald Trump and clearly did not realize the divisions and the depth of anger in white rural America, and also the trade issue and the immigration issue. And that could end up being a big factor in Michigan.
Well, you've got a busload of Republican primary contenders who know the story of underestimating Donald Trump. Let's go to the Trump headquarters right now. Katie Tur is standing by there. Katie.
Yes, certainly, Lester. If the Democrats are thinking that they may have underestimated Donald Trump, look at his Republican rivals who did the exact same thing. Now the campaign says they're not only hopeful about Michigan, they're hopeful about Minnesota, they're hopeful about Wisconsin. They are saying that their message, their jobs message, is going to work in the upper Midwest, and it now is looking like, at the very least, it is working a little bit. Remember, when you look at Donald Trump as a candidate and you compare him to Hillary Clinton, she raised a lot of money from a lot of big donors, and Donald Trump raised a lot of money from a lot of small donors. He's repeatedly called this a movement, and the facts bear out. This has been a movement. I have crisscrossed the country with Donald Trump, and he's held rallies upwards of 10,000 people in almost every single state. When Hillary Clinton, he would say Hillary Clinton would need celebrities to help her turn out large crowds. Donald Trump could walk in a room, he says, and own that crowd and turn out thousands of people all on his own without a guitar. And now we are seeing that bear out in these results that are coming in. The campaign feels extraordinarily good right now. But not only that, members of the Republican Party that I've been speaking to for over a year and a half now are suddenly feeling very good about Donald Trump themselves. Folks who expressed doubt about him for quite some time and pretty recently are now saying that they are happy to be on board. The last 9 days, 10, 11, 12 days after that FBI news came out was a real boon for Donald Trump. He regained ground, mostly within the Republican Party, because he was able to insinuate that Hillary Clinton might be facing indictment, allowing Republicans who might have been on the fence about Donald Trump to come home to the party, to feel better about that vote, because they didn't feel good about allowing Hillary Clinton to win the presidency. Now, we don't know ultimately what sort of ramifications that announcement had, but certainly the Trump campaign is feeling very good right now.
All right, Katie Tur, two election viewing parties hoping to be celebrations a few blocks apart here in Manhattan. No one is going home at either of them. We've got a barn burner. It'll be a late night. We continue to watch it play out. We'll take a short break here and be back in a moment. It's 11:16 here in the East. The race to 270. You can see it there. 209 for Clinton, 187 right now for Trump. And you can also, on the side of the building, we're putting up the states that each have won. These are the states that Donald Trump has so far been awarded tonight based on our projections. And here's a list of the states that Hillary Clinton has won. And right now she leads in the electoral count. But we're watching several states right now that are still too close to call that will turn this election one way or the other. Let's go to Kelly O'Donnell right now. One of those states is the state of Wisconsin. She's at Paul Ryan headquarters. He, by the way, easily coasted to re-election. Tonight, Kelly?
Well, Lester, usually when the person whose party this is has won, spoken, and maybe even gone home, the room clears out. But not tonight and not in Wisconsin. There have been huge cheers here as additional developments have come out about the Senate race, for example. You've been talking about that with Ron Johnson, who was considered so far back and was widely talked about as the second most vulnerable incumbent Republican senator. And this crowd cheered loudly. This is also sort of a testament to the kind of three-person power structure in Wisconsin. You've got RNC Chairman Reince Priebus, Governor Scott Walker, and House Speaker Paul Ryan. They each have important organizations. They have a network of supporters. They know how to do a ground game. All of that helpful to Ron Johnson here. And of course, making Paul Ryan's re-election easy. He even hinted at it. He said it looks like it could be a very interesting night in his speech here to supporters. So they're excited here about the prospects of kind of that penetrating of the industrial Great Lakes Midwest for Republicans. This is a state that many thought would easily go blue, and Republicans in this room are watching with great interest and feeling pretty good about tonight. Lester?
All right, Kelly, thanks very much. Let's go back right now to Chuck Todd. He's working his magic map there. I see you doing various versions of the race to 270.
We do, and look, I'll be honest. We've got a glitch with Nebraska because of the messed up split here. But I believe if I leave Nebraska alone, I believe it's counted in there. So let me undo a few of these here. So right now, let's put it this way here, where we think Florida and Georgia leaning Trump. Let's Minnesota leaning her. Now it leaves us basically, again, pay no attention to that. So we got New Hampshire can go there. You've got perhaps here. If you see, this thing could get, here's the scary thing. So there's Trump at 269.
I know where you're going.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's her at 268. And she is currently probably going to win the one district in Omaha there. The point is, it doesn't take much for us to end up at 269 if somehow he wins Wisconsin, she wins Michigan, and wins both New Hampshire and Nevada. The thing is, you go in this, you're going to have recounts maybe in the Maine 2nd district. You may have a recount in Nebraska 2nd. We have, and never mind 269 means what? Nobody gets 270, and then it goes to the House. The House would get one vote per state delegation. If we had this conversation 2 hours ago, I'd have said knock it off. I know. This is not out of the realm of possibility here. And again, apologies for the glitch here, but I promise you that one does belong there. But the thing is, we're not that far away from the great virus and flaw that is in our Constitution because we have an even number of electoral votes.
Tom, is it getting out their pocket Constitution to learn what happens there?
Tom, is this a one-off, or is this the state of American elections now going forward?
Well, I don't know yet. What I do know is that the country is more agitated than we realize. It's been going on in Western democracies. Brexit in England, for example, there's a lot of anxiety in Western Europe. And we've been hearing, as we go across this country for a long, long time, that people are very, very unhappy with how they're treated by, the federal government, the regulations that they have to deal with. They feel like they have been overrun by social changes in America. A lot of people out there are not happy about same-sex marriages, for example, and about the other changes that are going on in the cultural part of America. And they wanted to speak out against it. I do think that Washington and even those of us in the national media have walled ourselves off far too much from where people live. I've been watching, for example, a lot of all the experts who have been on all the broadcasts, and we're almost all from east of the Hudson. You very seldom hear someone who is speaking from Iowa or speaking from Chicago or speaking from somewhere else.
You know what? We don't have a Mason City Bureau.
Right.
And I'm not saying that.
I know that's true.
And that's.
We got to go. We'll have a break. We'll come back, talk. This is important.
And we will be right back. All right, it's the 11:22 in the East. Michigan still too close to call, but look at the difference now. It's down to a little over 16,000 votes, and Michigan suddenly looms very, very large tonight in this election. Wisconsin may also play a major role here. Too early to call is what we're characterizing Wisconsin. And right now, Chuck Todd is going to take a closer look, drill down a little bit.
Yeah, let's just take a look at see what's in Wisconsin. Let's get us to get used to it a little bit here. One place I like to check in on, because I'm a Packer fan, is Brown County. As you can see here, this used to be a swing county not that long ago. Trump's winning it by almost 20 points. We'll do a quick comparison here, and you can see what Obama did here. Look, he barely lost Green Bay. He lost it. Essentially, this is a swing county. He only lost it by 2 points. But this cycle, this is just another story. Green Bay, a Trump county at this point, excuse me, let me show you here, in a big, big way. That's just one reason why Wisconsin is on a knife's edge. And this is a state right now that the folks in the Clinton camp say is integral to their path to victory in the 270. We are going to take a short break. We continue our coverage of this very dramatic night. Several races too close to call. We may not know the answer to this drama for a very, very long time. We'll be back from New York after this.
As well as West Coast states. California, look at these results, with 55 electoral votes. Oregon with 7 electoral votes. Washington, we see here, with 12 electoral votes. And the Aloha State, Hawaii, picking up 4 electoral votes. Let's dig in here. Joining us now from Miami, Florida, is Mariana Atencio, who is at a watch party. Mariana, set the stage for us. What's going on there in Florida?
Hey, Chanel, I'm here at a local watch party in Miami with Latino families, and the families here are mixed status. Many of them have undocumented people in their families, citizens who voted, or even family members who were deported. And as these results start to come in, these families are grappling with what could be the outcome, the fact that Donald Trump could in fact be elected president. They are assimilating these results. Young people like Valerie here. Valerie, you are here all alone in the U.S. You've been here for 10 months. Your parents were deported to Colombia. What are you feeling now as these results come in?
Right now, I'm really nervous because I see that Trump is winning. And knowing that Trump is winning, it's like a possibility that my parents can come back again. So right now, Hillary is my hope for me and my family to be together again.
What would you tell Donald Trump supporters and even Donald Trump himself about people like you and your family?
Well, I'm 16 years old, and I think I still need my parents' support with me because I'm alone, and as well as other kids and other families, we need to be together.
Thank you so much, Valerie. You are very brave. And Chanel, Nora is joining me here. She's a legal guardian to Valerie and many kids in her situation. And as these results start to come in, we have seen the mood really tense in here, people holding hands, praying for what outcome, Nora, for families like the ones we are with now?
We are praying for the best for our children. We have 1,007 children who are alone or
under your care, 1,000 children.
Care. Yes, and because they are orphan, father or mother or both has been deported, and we are here just waiting for the last decision. And whoever is the next president, we will continue our fight to protect our children and the immigrant families.
Thank you so much, Nora, for your testimony. Many Latino families across the country, with the more than 11 million undocumented people here in the United States, having these same discussions and going through these same feelings, Chanel, across the country tonight.
Mariana, those were great interviews. Thanks for checking in with us, and we'll talk to you again a little later this evening. I want to bring in Jennifer Lawless from American University. Let's compare Mariana's live report with some of the live reports we've watched all evening long, where they're jubilant, they're excited. This is seriously almost like a tale of two different countries, a divided country.
It is, and we basically saw this play out over the course of the campaign. How women fare in the United States and what their future looks like, how blacks and Latinos will fare and what their future looks like, how college-educated versus uneducated people will fare and what their future looks like. It really is a tale of two countries, and we're seeing in the battleground states that it's still too close to call.
When we dig into the numbers here, I looked up this morning, the Latina vote, the early vote, it nearly doubled from 4 years ago. I mean, they really had so many campaigns with their ground initiatives. Why is this so close? What happened?
It's unclear. I mean, a lot of the time we don't really know what to do with the early vote. Is that the enthusiastic vote and then everybody else just doesn't turn out on Election Day? But as of right now, it looks like it's possible that Trump actually did better with Latinos than Mitt Romney did.
And finally, what does Hillary Clinton, let's just in case people are still tuning in, they're flipping around, what does Hillary Clinton have to pull off in order to win tonight?
She needs to win Michigan. If she wins Michigan, then we can talk about the next steps. But without Michigan, there's no path.
Surprised?
I'm surprised. I think a lot of people are surprised.
My phone is exploding really quickly. A lot of people are saying, James Comey, did he give Trump a lifeline?
I think he gave him multiple lifelines. The fact that Trump is winning in most of these battleground states when the polls suggested that that was not the case is evidence of that.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer Lawless. There are a number of important ballot initiatives across the country we have to talk about, including those dealing with marijuana and gun control. We will update you on those when we see you back here in 30 minutes. For now, though, we send it back to Lester Holt in New York for continuing coverage of Decision Night in America.
It is 11:30 in the East, and as we look at Democracy Plaza, NBC News projecting that Donald Trump is the apparent winner in Florida. Donald Trump, the apparent winner in Florida. It's a state that he called a must-win, and he appears to be winning it, 29 electoral votes. Let's show you the vote count right now as it stands. 49% Trump, 48% Clinton. That's the current vote count, 96% of the vote in Florida. Now, we also want to tell you that Utah, now we're getting a call on Utah, the state of Utah. The projected winner is Donald Trump in Utah. And let's look at how the votes break down in Utah. Okay, we're going to walk you through some of the other calls we made. You were away in your local coverage. California projected for Hillary Clinton. Hawaii for Hillary Clinton. Idaho is won by Donald Trump, the projected winner in Idaho. Oregon will go to Hillary Clinton. Clinton also the projected winner in Washington. And as we had noted earlier, Trump, the projected winner in North Carolina. So let's take you down on the ice and show you where the race to 270 stands right now. First, I'm sorry, we got a new one. This is a new projection in the state of Iowa. Donald Trump wins in Iowa. All right, now let's take you. There's the breakdown in Iowa right now. 50% Trump, 44% for Clinton. Now I think we can take you down and show you where things stand in the race to 270. Big change there with that last round. 228 for Trump, 209 for Clinton, as more and more states are now filled in. Some big ones still outstanding there. We continue to watch. That will likely turn this race one way or the other. Let's go right now. By the way, this is the view at Clinton headquarters, obviously reacting to that news in Florida. Long faces at this viewing party here. This is Clinton headquarters in New York, not far from where the Trump folks are gathered right now. Let's go to Andrea Mitchell. She is there. Andrea?
Well, you're showing the faces, the stunning information as it's been progressing here of Donald Trump winning Iowa, which was pretty much anticipated, and Florida. But this is such a narrow path. And for all this time, we've been talking about the multiple paths that she had and the narrow path that he had. And clearly that was a misjudgment by all of the conventional wisdom. So pollsters missed it, correspondents missed it, all of the analysis. The focus on the early vote, which was clearly misplaced because we were attributing too much weight to the early vote and not counting what was still out there.
Andrea Mitchell at the Clinton headquarters, where there has been a sharp reaction to that news that Florida has gone to Donald Trump. It is the opposite reaction, I can assure you, at the Trump headquarters. That's where Katie Tur is now. Katie?
It is absolutely the opposite reaction. They're chanting USA, USA, USA here. The mood only grows happier by the minute. I can tell you earlier, only a couple hours ago, this room was relatively empty as the electoral map looked pretty daunting for Donald Trump. And as state by state has fallen into his camp, this room is only growing more excited. They really feel like Donald Trump has a very good chance of winning, and they feel vindicated in this idea that Donald Trump was speaking for them when nobody else was. I've met a ton of people across this country who not only say that Donald Trump says what they think, they like that he tells it like it is, but they wanted somebody that would go in and shake up Washington, really give it to Washington, if you will. Somebody who would cut through the red tape, cut through the drama between the two sides, and just get things done. They believe that he is somebody who will be able to do things with the sweep of his hand, somebody who will be able to build a wall, somebody who will be able alone to stop radical Islamic terror. He's come out and he's spoken very strongly against a lot of things and broken a ton of traditional norms in this country, said things that no other candidate could have possibly said and survived, and yet he has. And looking back on this, I would say that the moment that he didn't call John McCain a war hero and his poll numbers surged after that, that should have been an eye-opening moment for everybody in this country, that nothing was going to apply to Donald Trump like it applied to everybody else. We saw this in the primaries. We saw this now, so far, during this general election, as his poll numbers have stayed pretty tight with Hillary Clinton, despite the various outrageous statements that he has made, despite the various controversies, despite saying that a Mexican judge was biased because of his heritage, despite attacking a Gold Star family, despite saying that he could grope women because he was a celebrity, despite multiple women coming out against him and saying that he touched them inappropriately or acted inappropriately to him. He has survived all of that, and now his campaign feels like they really have a very good shot of winning this race.
All right, Katie Turr, thanks very much. We want to go now to former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who has become a powerful surrogate, certainly, for Donald Trump. Mayor, react to what you're seeing so far. Florida has gone
I'm enormously excited for the country. I believe Donald Trump will be a truly great president. This is probably one of the greatest victories for the people of America since Andrew Jackson. I mean, this is against the entire establishment. Democrat, Republican, corporate, Wall Street, the media. I mean, 90% of the media lined up against him. 4 or 5 stories a day in the New York Times. Today, 4 of them negative about him. And the people of America.
I'll remind you, he's at 228 electoral votes, so not quite victory yet.
We're not there yet, but we're getting there, and it sure shows the power of the people.
How much do you think that the Comey story played into what we're seeing right now?
I don't know that it played very much into it. I think everyone had already made up their minds about Mrs. Clinton and the long period of time in which the Clintons had committed a number of serious crimes that were ignored by the Washington establishment. Perjury, Whitewater, the Mark Rich pardon, which to me was enormously upsetting because I prosecuted Mark Rich, and he was the #1 fugitive in the country, and they got $30 million for that. Selling uranium to Russia. I think those are the things that really brought her down more than what Comey did. Comey's report played a big role in it, but I think Donald Trump's outreach to the people is the main thing here. You have to have been at his rallies and seen the way people reacted to him. I told him at the first rally that I was at that he was going to win this election. Because he reached the people.
Mr. Giuliani, if Donald Trump is triumphant tonight, your name has been mentioned as a possible cabinet member. What position would you want in a Trump administration?
Right now, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm enormously happy at my law firm, my security firm. I do cybersecurity, which is unbelievably challenging, and I'm just happy to see that my country is in good hands and not in the hands it might have been in if we made a mistake. And let's hope we get there. You're right, we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, so we're not quite there. There's a lot of drama left in this night.
I'm still praying.
Mayor Giuliani and your wife, thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll see how the evening progresses. I want to go over to Chuck Todd right now, who's gathered with some of the analysts, working through some of what we've seen so far.
President Trump may be something that everybody needs to get used to, including the Republican Party. And I have to say here's 3 people, smart minds in the Republican Party. And I think we all thought it couldn't happen, that he couldn't do this on the power of white voters alone, that he couldn't do what he did, and guess what? He may just do it. Mike Murphy, what did you miss?
Oh, boy, I missed a lot. Under the normal rules of politics, he couldn't put it together, but he's broken the normal rules, and he's getting votes he shouldn't get at a huge level among white America, where partisanship doesn't seem to have the same glue. States like Wisconsin, which are full of white Democrats who apparently in big numbers are voting for him. So right now, Michigan, I can see 100,000 votes for her out of Detroit. Yeah. Wisconsin, I don't see it.
I don't see it either.
Yeah.
No, I think barring an upset in Arizona,
yeah,
by her, Nicole. I mean, the paths are starting to get cut off for her.
Yeah.
So, look, he's remade the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
This is not Paul Ryan's party. I think Paul Ryan's days as Speaker of the House are probably over tonight, because I don't see. The House is going to respond differently.
You elicited a moan from you. I'll yield my time.
I don't agree with it. I am an admitted reluctant Trump voter. As I just said on talking to Nicole downstairs, there are millions of us. I didn't know there were that many people concerned with the Supreme Court. Obamacare, Arizona, your last-ditch effort. The premium on the silver plan in Phoenix went up 149%. And so there is a vast number. Ron Johnson winning in Wisconsin is an Obamacare vote. I think that all this is going to come down to Donald Trump will sit down with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, if this holds true, and they will do deals, and they will save the Supreme Court.
Let me throw a little. This is because I'm sure some Bernie bros are going to be talking about this. Does Bernie Sanders lose Wisconsin? Anybody? Who thinks Bernie Sanders would have lost Wisconsin?
I think he would have probably lost Wisconsin. Just culturally, he wouldn't have connected, I think, to some of those counties that Trump's winning.
Was she uniquely unable to connect to this vote?
Yeah. I want to get in on being wrong, because I think we probably get a race to the bottom.
I was just going to say, well, the table's going to get crowded for
it. Here's one thing that I'll just speak for myself that I got wrong. I think that people's tolerance for all the unsavory things that came out of Donald Trump's mouth. I mean, he was undeniably embracing racially charged language, undeniably misogynistic language. Talking about grabbing a woman in the genitals is disqualifying for any other person in any other year. I did not vote for him, and could never have voted for someone who said the things that he said, who banned an entire religion. I mean, the Republican Party is going to have to grapple with who and what it is if he wins or loses. But voters had an incredibly high threshold for pain and for intolerance and for these sort of racial and misogynistic undertones, because they thought that he might be political chemo, this thing that could wipe out the cancer that is a corrupt Washington. And so they're willing to tolerate all that bad to get some dramatic change.
Actually, you said chemo. Somebody said to me, it's like, no, he's this. Yeah, there's only a 10% chance the pill would work, but I want to try it.
Also, when voters are really mad, they have a low tolerance for the baseball bat. They don't pick the prettiest one in town. They want a weapon, and he was that weapon, so they held him accountable to almost nothing. On the other hand, they don't like her. She's politics.
That's it. I just want to say, you said rejection election on my show. You're absolutely right. This is a rejection of Hillary Clinton and a tentative willingness to roll the dice, which is why I think those curbs in the form of McConnell and Ryan will mean a great deal. It is a rejection election.
It mean everything.
By the way, I do want to go to the Andrew Jackson point here, because I've thought about this too. That he was trying to do Andrew Jackson, and I didn't think you could do Andrew Jackson.
Walter Russell Meade wrote that, and he was so prescient.
But absolutely, because that is how, Andrew Jackson, the first populist to become president, and who was arguably destructive to the American economy at the time, but the public didn't care.
John Meacham's book captured that, and he ruled as he ran. He ruled as a disruptor.
And by the way, to this day, historians, some think they love Jackson, and some think he was the worst president. Yeah.
If Trump wins, and I believe on this situation he has a better chance than not, now will come the pain, the other half. Voting to blow things up is easy. Living with that in the economy and everywhere else, look at the futures, is another story.
Nicole, let me give you more PTSD about Florida. I want to put up Florida. This is the four-way Florida board. A bunch of Democrats are gnawing their fingernails because look at the difference between Trump and Clinton, 132,000. And then look at the total vote of Johnson-Stein, 266. Now, let's not presume all Johnson voters were somehow going to go Clinton.
Right.
But something kept them from voting for Trump because he was changed and he was outside of that. So we don't know. It's a known unknown.
But there is going to be some Bernie bros or things like that someday. Look, Democrats are going to look for a bunch of things to gnaw on their fingernails at this one. But the fact of the matter is
that. I mean, I was talking about show trials in the Republican Party. Now I'm going to be in the chair.
Yeah.
But and others. But the Dems are going to have an implosion over this.
All right. I got to interrupt you. I got to go to Lester. We got a call in Georgia.
All right, we're making that projection now. NBC News projects that Donald Trump wins the state of Georgia. This has gone on a lot longer than many imagined it would, but 16 electoral votes, Trump wins Georgia. We also want to note very quickly, well, let's first of all look at the where that takes us in the race to 270. That puts Trump at 244. Clinton standing right now at 209. Let me just mention here very quickly, Arizona, Wisconsin, those have moved to the too close to call category. We'll take a break, be back with more right after this. We're going to peek in right now at the celebration that is growing at the Trump headquarters as supporters there sense this may be their night in the race to 270. And a much different story at the Clinton headquarters. This was a bit earlier as people reacting to the news that Florida had gone Trump's way. So it is a tale of two halls blocks away here in New York City, interpreting and watching the news as it unfolds in this extremely tight presidential election. To give us some perspective on this momentous night, we welcome a pair of well-known presidential historians, Doris Kearns-Goodwin and Michael Beschloss. Good to have both of you here. We always try to find some historic comparison, but is there any to this election, Doris?
Well, I keep thinking about 1948 when every poll said that Dewey would beat Truman, when all the reporters who were on the train with Truman saw the intensity of the support that Truman had. But James Reston later apologized and said, I didn't take that into account. I was listening to the established view. So if this were to turn around that way, I think people talked to each other too much and didn't listen to what people outside were feeling. On the other hand, whoever wins tonight, what this shows is that there's going to be a divided country and we are going to need leadership. And the scary thing is that both candidates people don't feel are trustworthy, and more than ever we're going to need somebody who can heal these divisions. Gore helped to do it in 2000. I remember that night with Tom Brokaw. We were waiting up forever and ever and ever, and somehow he was able to be graceful. Whoever wins or loses tonight is going to have to show that leadership, and on the other side, that grace and classiness. Well, and I worry whether that's going to happen.
Yeah, and let me talk to Michael about that. One of these two candidates is going to have to make, or is going to be expected to make a concession speech at the end of this night. Given that they are both immensely unpopular, and as Doris points out, that the country more than ever needs someone to lead us through this split. What would you expect?
Well, whoever is president is going to have to heal and unite this country, and that would have been true at the end of this campaign in any case. But I think, Lester, one other thing we have to remember that perhaps is a little bit forgotten, and that is that if you look through American history, it is almost never the case that one political party is able to hold on to the White House 3 terms in a row. Martin Van Buren was able to be elected as Andrew Jackson's successor, 1836. If you're looking at a vice president who was able to do that, you have to go all the way ahead to George H.W. Bush in 1988, elected to essentially Ronald Reagan's 3rd term. Dwight Eisenhower, although very popular, was not able to hand the White House to Richard Nixon, nor was Bill Clinton, who was at the end of his presidency quite popular, able to do the same thing for Al Gore. So I think we may be seeing some form of that syndrome tonight.
We look at the polls and depending how this turns out, we may look at the polls and say what happened, but is it harder to measure an electorate where so many people are voting against the other person, when so many people are holding their nose and saying, well, this is all I got, let me choose one? How do you factor in that gut check, that moment of doing something you don't want to do?
And I think we're used to that in a primary situation, which are usually protest moments. We're less used to that in a general election, because normally you assume that by the time people come to a general election, they've chosen one candidate over another. And I think it just shows there's an anti-political feeling in this country. There's a feeling against experience. And somehow people are not viewing politicians in the same way they used to. So the outsider, even with all of the flaws, if it turns out, even if it's closer than we thought, was able to get a momentum behind him that didn't need a ground game, that didn't have the polls, people telling them. I mean, everything about this race is, I mean, Yogi Berra would say it, you can't predict anything in this race. And I think all of us are going to have to feel that. No matter what happens, it's still a lot closer than a lot of people thought.
Well, and it is a lot closer, and this is a good time to remind folks, this is not over.
It is not over yet.
Neither
right.
candidate has the 270. I want to thank you both, Michael and Doris. Good to have you both on. We appreciate your insight on a night of such history here. We are going to take a break. We'll continue with our coverage. Still watching some too early to call races, and there may be some interesting developments here with how this will stack out at the end of the day. We're going to check in with Chuck Todd in a moment. He's got that look on his face like you need to talk to me.
Wait till you see this.
Wait till you see this, he says. We'll be right back. All right, Chuck, I gave you the best build-up I can. Now dazzle me.
Let me go here. As you can see, we're getting very close here. If she does hang on in Nevada and she wins New Hampshire, and right now, I think Trump's likely to narrowly grab Wisconsin. Don't know yet. I think she ends up with Michigan. And look what happens. 269, 269. Now, this scenario does the following. It gives her CD2. And it gives him, in Nebraska, CD2 in Maine. My point is this. Both are close. Maine 2 and Nebraska 2.
269, 269, then we'll be looking at recounts.
Believe it or not, we may have recounts in Maine 2, a recount in Nebraska 2. This is a very plausible scenario as this night is wearing on. Michigan and Wisconsin heading those directions is the most likely result.
Anybody else up for an all-nighter? We'll be back with more coverage in a moment.
State. And just in, Trump projected to win the state of Georgia, a state Clinton had hoped to flip blue. Trump also projected to win in the state of Iowa, the first state to hold caucuses, of course, earlier this year. And Trump can add Utah to his list of projected wins, overcoming a challenge from third-party candidate Evan McMullin. Hillary Clinton pinning her hopes now on races still too close to call, including the state of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. And that's where we find Miguel Almaguer in Las Vegas. Miguel, what can you tell us?
Chanel, despite the fairly loud and upbeat music here at Nevada Democratic headquarters, I can tell you the mood here is anything but jubilant. This may be one of the largest gatherings for Democrats here in Nevada, and they are cheering because it appears that their candidate running for U.S. Senate is in leading position here, but when they show the news of Hillary Clinton trailing Donald Trump, the crowd here has been fairly quiet. Again, they're cheering here at this moment because their candidate, Catherine Cortez-Martinez, is in the lead here. But those are fairly small victories for the state here. This is, of course, a battleground state where they are definitely keeping a very close eye on the presidential campaign. The crowd here has actually thinned out quite a bit over the last hour or so outside of this convention hall. We've even seen some people here in tears, so we know the mood here, while still upbeat at times when their local candidates are winning. The big picture here, though, certainly in that presidential race in this critical swing state, they don't appear quietly as confident as they were just a short time ago, Chanel.
Miguel, I was just looking down at my notes here. I wrote earlier this morning there was a 40,000 early vote advantage by registered Democrats. But we have to remember the independent votes, obviously. I don't know what happened, which way they decided to go, but what are people saying there?
Well, here they were definitely trying to rally around the Hispanic vote. Some 770,000 people in this state voted before the polls even opened here in early election voting. So they were confident that that vote would push the Democratic candidates in this state over the top and help turn Nevada into a blue state instead of the purple state that it's been over the last couple of elections here. But that simply didn't seem to be the case. We know that Donald Trump had filed a lawsuit in Clark County here in Las Vegas to challenge some of the early voting that had taken place. A judge dismissed that order earlier today, so the voting did continue. We know the turnout here in terms of Latinos has been incredibly large over the last couple of days here, and they thought that may be enough to stem the tide here, making this purple state blue, but it appears it wasn't enough to swing the big vote here as they continue to watch the results pour in here, Chanel.
Well, we all knew Nevada was a notoriously difficult state to poll. Miguel Almaguer, thank you for joining us this evening. Joining me once again is Jennifer Lawless from American University. We're starting to hear the word tears from a lot of these watch parties.
We are. I think the Clinton campaign and the Clinton supporters are beginning to realize that the path to 270 is looking pretty bleak. And I can tell you from my own social media feed and my friends who are texting me and my students who have been posting on social media that everybody's in a pretty big state of shock.
Well, I'm getting, same thing. I'm getting a lot of questions from viewers. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to toss them to you and you can see what happens. So first of all, a lot of people are asking me, Hillary Clinton, she really wanted to win big. We talked about that, so there wouldn't be a challenge. No matter what happens tonight, what will we see tomorrow? Do you think one of the candidates will challenge this?
I don't know that Hillary Clinton will challenge it. If she wins, we know that it's going to be a very, very close election, and there are some states that are going to have razor-thin margins. So my bet is probably.
And then here's another one. I think this was interesting. Republicans came home, so to speak. Democrats came home. What about independents? The thought is that they would go to Hillary. Did that just not happen?
It seems like it didn't happen. The bulk of them broke for Donald Trump, and I think that was somewhat unanticipated.
And why do you think that is?
Well, at the end of the day, a lot of those independents really are partisan leaners, and they wind up going home. In an anti-establishment kind of election, they were a little bit harder to poll and a little bit harder to predict, but they're Republicans.
There are a lot of words that are buzzing through my feeds right now. Supreme Court, social policy issues, global war on terrorism, Obamacare. These things clearly matter.
Oh, a Trump presidency plus unified Republican control in Congress is a problem for pro-choice advocates, pro-marriage equality advocates, pro-Obamacare advocates. I mean, the world will look like a different place.
Good discussion, and it will continue, I have a feeling, all night long. Thank you, Jennifer Lawless. We want to tell you about one important ballot initiative at this hour. Voters in California have passed Proposition 64, legalizing marijuana use by adults 21 or older. One of 5 states voting on marijuana laws today. That's a big one. We now throw it back to Lester Holt in our New York studios for continuing coverage of Decision Night in America.
The drama, the anxiety, the sense of this night can certainly be seen in the faces at 2 different locations, not far away from each other, here in Midtown Manhattan. At the Trump headquarters, happy faces, hands in the air, as they watch their candidate defy the polls and powering to a significant lead here tonight in this race for president. We're at the Trump headquarters, or at the Clinton headquarters, long faces and tears. Here's the national vote right now, the popular vote, Trump with 48% to 47%. But as we knew going in, this is a story about battleground races. In the race to 270, Trump right now has climbed out ahead to 244 to Clinton's 209. There are some remaining states there here. They are all in the too close to call category, starting with Michigan, too close to call, Wisconsin, New Hampshire. And you can see some of these, the difference is 6,000, the difference in New Hampshire. Maine is too close to call. Minnesota is too close to call. Pennsylvania, part of Hillary Clinton's firewall, still too close to call. A 7,000 vote difference there. I don't know if you caught that. Nevada is too close to call, and Arizona too close to call. These states will keep us up for a long time here, waiting to see who can pass that 270 mark. There's the map. It started all gray at the beginning of the evening at 7 o'clock Eastern time. You can see a sea of red now that encompasses the south and the middle of the country, but smatterings of blue in some states that count. But it's those gray areas right now are the ones I just ticked you down through, the too close to call states. And right now, the Trump people feeling better and better about their chances of seeing Donald Trump become the next president of the United States. I'm back here with my panel. Chuck, you gave a scenario a moment ago where we could see a 269-269 tie. But let's talk quickly about some of these states we've looked at. It was a 7,000 vote difference now in Pennsylvania.
Look, what's out in Pennsylvania? It slightly leans her. There's a lot out in Allegheny. It's a county she should carry. But let's talk about the bigger story.
Down to 4,000, by the way, as we look at it now.
Let's go to the big blue. Remember the big blue wall? We've all said it. Those states that have voted Democrat in every single presidential election going back to '88. Well, Pennsylvania is precarious. All he has to do is win Pennsylvania, and it's ball game. Yeah. He's president of the United States. It's done. He's over the mark. Michigan, Wisconsin, those three. He could win all three. Right now, she leads in, she's got, I think, a path to victory in Michigan and a narrow one in Pennsylvania. But the bottom line is he broke the big blue wall.
By the way, he cracked it. If you just look at where the candidates spent their time, I mean, there's no question that the Clinton campaign took the big blue wall for granted. They came to Michigan late. They never went to Wisconsin, as I understand it. And Trump, I think, made 6 different visits or 6 stops in Wisconsin.
By the way, they were members of the Republican Party, okay? This miss by everybody is even like Republican consultants are going, why is Trump doing that? Wisconsin's done. Wisconsin was so done, the National Republican Senatorial Committee pulled out. Now, they went back in to try to help Johnson, but it was late.
Trump had a ton of problems in the primary in Wisconsin.
This is the miss on Trump is far and wide. It's the modelers, it's the pollsters, it's us in the media. The miss is far and wide.
But what was it that the polls could not measure that was out there?
What was missing is the underestimating of this white vote. You know, there's going to be a lot of a couple of there was one guy, I'm trying to remember where he's at, at the Weekly Standard or Real Clear Politics, and I can't remember the man's name, but he had been making this argument of a missing white vote, that there was a bunch of vote that Romney could have had but didn't win, and while the census showed that it was there, no one believed it was going to get activated because Trump didn't actually do work to activate vote. He didn't go out there with registered voter, but he didn't need to, as it turned out. They were listening.
His rhetoric got it.
That's right. The rhetoric did it. That's your get out the vote. It's Donald Trump rallies.
I also think that it became, for a lot of people, they didn't want to say that they were for Trump because it was socially unacceptable in some areas. So they just kept it to themselves. And then the secrecy of the ballot is that they can go in and cast the vote for whoever they want to. And look, she has not been a popular figure for some time. We know that they were 2 of the most unpopular candidates who would ever run for president. And Bill and Hillary Clinton have been around for a long time, and everybody wanted change, and they wanted agents of change, and they were not there. But what is so stunning to me is that the Clinton campaign, which has always had a great reputation for knowing exactly where the votes are, David Plouffe has been saying for a month, Pennsylvania, he's not going to get a vote there. I mean, why would he even go there? And they've been talking.
Tom, I go back to everybody underestimated the rural white vote. Yeah. Everybody thought there wasn't enough white vote to lose Hispanics and African Americans by the margins that he's losing them by and to win.
But
and
it's a two-pronged issue. I mean, first of all, the white vote has been declining as a share of the electorate over the past several cycles. So a lot of pollsters are not factoring in suddenly a surge in white vote. And then if you see depressed turnout among the non-white vote and you're not getting those same numbers, I mean, that's how you get to a map that we're looking at tonight.
By the way, one conversation we haven't had, we've been talking about recriminations. We started about in the Republican Party, right? And as the nights wore on, and we're like,
I know where you're going.
Let's talk about what's going on inside the Democratic Party now. There's going to be plenty of people that say, what if Joe Biden had run? What Biden would have been a real heir apparent? What if was the Democratic ticket too white? Okay, I mean that's going to be, if you look at the African American vote, there's going to be some people that say maybe she should have picked Cory Booker, and the point is there's going to be that, or maybe Bernie Sanders actually had his finger more on the pulse of what's going on in America.
But let's look at the way. I think that the ticket was too establishment. I mean, I think that's really what it was, is that she has been there for so long. She's talked in conventional ways about what the call of the Democratic Party is, and her vice presidential running mate had a wonderful record in Virginia, but he wasn't all that well known and that dynamic. So I don't think that they had the charisma that the white people who are out there saying, I want big change, and they were sending those signals all along. We missed them because it would come and go, and then suddenly it's this tonight.
Savannah, who's the leader of the Democratic Party?
I don't know. You tell me.
I guess it's Elizabeth Warren.
Let's look at the way that the Clinton campaign closed this out. Yeah, there was an uplifting message yesterday, but the last several weeks have all been, the ads talking about, the things he said about women and minorities and disabled people. And it clearly didn't stick. I mean, let's remember, a month ago, we were playing when he sat on a bus, and people were openly saying, this is it. We all sat up that night thinking, he's going to have to drop out. This is fatal. There was nothing fatal in anything that he did.
No other candidate could have said the things that he did, taken the positions that he did, take on his own party the way that he did, and continue to win one rally after another, one state after another during the primaries. This is,
and the Clinton folks said saying there's no moral equivalency with what he's done with her transgressions.
No, by the way, President Trump has no shackles. No. He won this his way. He won this by trashing the press. He won this by trashing the establishment. He won this by saying some things that we all thought you couldn't say. I mean, this is...
He had one United States senator on the Republican side who was actively for him, Jeff Sessions of Alabama. All the rest of them ran from him.
This is going to be, I mean, there's going to be the normal rules. There's no small G governor on him, on anything. This is going to be a very, very different. We still got a long way to go.
If she wins, there's no mandate.
We're not there yet.
There's no mandate.
She's squeaking across the line.
But Trump is going to act like a mandate, and if you're him, why wouldn't you? When everybody said you were done, and done by a lot. Okay?
Hallie, you've got some exits.
Well, it's interesting hearing your conversation, guys, because you talk about the Republican Party needing to figure out what would happen if it were to be a President Trump, but if it were to be a President Clinton, or even if it's not, there's the question of what has happened with younger voters, millennial voters. And Chuck, I want to get your take on the third-party factor here that you were talking about a little bit over on the other side of the set. When you look at how Hillary Clinton performed with voters under the age of 30, this is all across the country, millennials we call them, she got 54%. Not surprising that she would see that, but look at this gray slice of the pie. That's the other section here for 2016. That's Gary Johnson, that's Jill Stein, that's in some cases Evan McMullen. Walk back with me to 2012. Look at that gray slice of the pie. Look how much smaller it was for President Obama back in 2012. Fewer voters under 30 ran from him. You can see his margin was higher than hers. So the third party factor here may be cutting into Hillary Clinton's advantage nationwide when you look at these exit polls. And here's why it matters. A state like New Hampshire, right? When you look at the numbers, the vote totals here, when you combine Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, the independent candidates, it's such a close race in a place like some of these states like New Hampshire that it's more than that margin.
You mentioned President Obama, and we're watching this play out. If this goes in Trump's direction, you've got a president who has passionately fought for Hillary Clinton and his legacy.
Look, this is a big ding on his legacy, not a small one. Yes, he's got a job approval rating over 50%, but the third term is what puts you in the history books as that bigger figure. You know, Reagan got his third term with George H.W. Bush that made him just a larger than life figure. And look, Obama, it looked like he was going to be the Democratic Party's Reagan. And by the way, he still may be, meaning he'll be the shining light that Democrats point to in this loss to say, oh, we got to find another Obama, just in the same way the Republican Party has spent 20 years looking for another Reagan.
The other thing is that, quite honestly, in the cold dawn of whatever the day brings, whether it's her or whether it's him, you've got to look at what they both stood for and what they want to do for the country. The country's sending a big, big protest tonight. So if she wins, she's got to wade through that. If he wins, they have to re-examine what he's had to say about knowing more about ISIS than the generals do, you know, about blowing up health care immediately, about having a tax program that every economist, Republican and Democrat alike, said it's a $5 trillion deficit the moment that it gets passed. So it's not just what he brought in terms of stylistically. It's also what he stands for and whether or not he'll listen to anybody else in his party. He went to meet with the Senate Republican leaders, and they said there are some issues. He said, not issues. It's about the show I put on. You know, it's about how I sell the thing.
That's why I feel like it's post policy. I mean, I think, you know, I don't even know if the Trump voter necessarily is signing on for this policy, the wall, or getting rid of NATO.
It's symbolic.
It is a protest vote. It is a primal shout.
Yeah.
And as long as Donald Trump was a big, pardon my French, middle finger to the establishment, to every institution. So long as he was carrying that mantle, he was a very attractive candidate for obviously a great number of people in this country.
Let me just quickly set things for people who are coming back and forth and trying to figure out where we are. It's not over. It's not over. But Donald Trump stands right now 26 electoral votes from becoming the next president of the United States. The gray you see on that map is going to tell the story over the next couple of hours, or less or more. We don't know. Those are states it's too close to call. But there's the race right now. The race to 270. Those numbers, the 209 for Clinton, the 240 for Trump. That's what it's all about, and those gray states. So here we are. We're 12 minutes into Wednesday morning. And we still don't know who the next president of the United States is. We do know, looking at that map, that this is an intensely divided country on a lot of levels.
If you get New Hampshire, you get 69.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your mic is on.
Now we're seeing how the sausage is made. Chuck's on the phone with the boiler room.
He's on. Yeah, that's the guy. He says, I got a guy. I'd say we're going to take a break. We'll continue in a moment, but I wanted to reset things where we are. We continue to watch, as I said, 13 minutes after midnight here on the East Coast. Our coverage will continue after this. Welcome back as we continue to follow the drama of the night. Who will be our next president? There has been another call in the race for U.S. Senate. Savannah.
Yeah, this is a biggie. Catherine Cortez-Masto. This is a hold, actually, for the Democrats. This was Harry Reid's seat. She's the first Latina ever elected to the U.S. Senate, and she defeats Joe Heck, one of these Republicans who really tied himself in knots over Donald Trump, distancing himself and then seeming at the tail end there to say that he could support him and going back and forth. In the end, Catherine Cortez-Masto wins in Nevada. Nevada, a state that we still are saying is too close to call on the presidential level. But this is not a pickup, but a hold for the Democrats.
And by the way, you look at Missouri, Blunt's leading. You look at New Hampshire, Ayotte's leading.
Republican.
And you look at Pennsylvania, Toomey's leading by a fingernail, but he's leading.
So it may be that the Democrats do not get their hopes of having the Senate either. And all of this, I mean, you've been talking about Chuck's theory over here about 269 to 269. If that were to happen, it goes over to the Congress to decide. The House would determine who the president was, and the Senate would determine the vice president.
Well, and it looks like Mike Pence has got to be a little bit happier that Republicans are winning this rather than Tim Kaine.
Chuck, what I want to do right now, let's go through, if we can, all these states that remain. They're all too close to call. Give me a characterization here. Let's start in Michigan. Michigan, too close to call.
Two things we are. She is underperforming Obama in Wayne County, which is Detroit. We are a little concerned. Wayne County has a very bad history of counting, number one. Number two, there is a lot of vote left in Flint, in and around Flint. That should be vote for her. It is going to be a nail biter. She does have a path to victory here in Michigan still, but that is a pure coin flip.
All right, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin right now, it looks Trump. The only reason we are waiting, I was just talking to our boiler room, Milwaukee does not drop its absentee vote until after all of the other election day voting is in. And we don't know how much absentee vote in Milwaukee there is.
Do they have early voting in Wisconsin?
No, they've not really. You do have to fill out a form, so it's not going to be a big number, but we don't know how big the number is, and until we see it, we're not going to be comfortable calling Trump. If you just did this on election day and what we have, Trump, there is no path for her, but we don't know what the absentee vote looks like, which is why we've held off.
All right, let's take a look at New Hampshire. This has taken an awful long time.
It's 5,000 votes, man. I mean, it's 5,000 votes, right? We still got, look, this can come from anywhere. When you're at 5,000 votes, you can't sit here and say, this area is available, this area is available. The question is, it's those Boston suburbs and Durham, University of New Hampshire, essentially versus the rest of the state that's Trump.
All right, Maine also has 4 electoral votes, also too close to call.
This looks like we're going to see a split here. 48-45, he was always going to be more dominant in the 2nd congressional district. It's more rural. That's Bangor. She's going to win Portland. And so it is, unless she sneaks in there, Maine 2, although Maine 2 has been a little bit closer than we thought it would. But depending on how Michigan and Wisconsin split, we'll see how important Maine becomes.
Katie Tur was telling us that the Trump folks think Minnesota, that they have a shot and a path to victory there. Now, remember, he traveled there the other day, and everyone looked, had a double take.
We don't see it yet. That doesn't mean he is doing better than usual for a Republican, but it is more likely to be a Clinton state at this point than a Trump state. But this is more evidence. The big blue wall has a ton of cracks.
Pennsylvania.
We are going to have to wait till all the counts are in. You're going to get used to seeing all the voters. We got to see it all. And we will probably never be able to say anything other than apparent winner when this happens.
But think about it. Yesterday, she's there with the president and First Lady of the United States, her husband, a former president, a rally there.
I'm going to go to Tom's point. So we could have a recount in Pennsylvania. We could have a recount in Omaha. We could have a recount in Maine, too. Michigan could be so close it could feel like a recount at this point. So it is it's quite, by the way.
The fact that Pennsylvania is so close, because this is one where the conventional wisdom is Republicans want to chase that rainbow every 4 years, but ultimately Pennsylvania comes out and votes Democratic. I mean, the fact that it's this tight says something.
There's a bunch of union voting Obama Democrats that are voting Trump.
As we take a quick look at Nevada and then Arizona as we head to a break, but we continue to watch with bated breath along with the rest of the country here as we wait for these states. Still too close to call as we wait for some important calls. We'll be back with more coverage. Decision night in America, or on this part of the country, decision morning in America. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, after midnight here in the East Coast, the race to 270. Trump right now with 244 electoral votes. There is the map as it stands right now. But some key areas of gray, states that are too close to call. We continue to watch them, and watching all this along with us outside our studios on Democracy Plaza. A lot of folks there around the viewing stations watching this drama unfold. And Jolene Kent is with some of them right now.
Lester, we're talking to some Donald Trump supporters. Alex, you are a voter in Texas. Why did you go for Trump?
I think that this says a lot more about Hillary than it does about Donald. I think it just shows that people don't trust her. And as much as Trump has against him, I think it says a lot more about her than it does about him.
Now, Stuart, you voted for Donald Trump in Connecticut. How are you feeling right now? He's in the lead at the moment.
I have to say that I embrace what Hillary has said to the country, and I hope that Donald embraces some of her sentiment about inclusivity. However, I think the American public has decided that the liberal media has just really taken too much of a hand in this election and has been telling the public really who to vote for all along. And one factor for me as a doctor is that the Obamacare policies, while they're trying to be helpful to the public, all of my patients have said that it's just too expensive.
Stuart, thank you so much. Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Live here on Democracy Plaza. Lester, back to you.
All right, Jolene Kent, some interesting pieces of conversation we can pick up on perhaps after the break about, is this more about Hillary Clinton? And also, let's face it, we in many ways were on the ballot as well, the media, and that's going to be another conversation. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more coverage. Decision Night in America here on NBC.
Decision Night in America continues.
I'm Chanel Jones at the NBC News Bureau in Washington. Defying most polls, Donald Trump is leading in the electoral vote 244 to Hillary Clinton's 209. Also in the popular vote, Trump has a more than a million vote lead over Hillary Clinton. Look at this. And at this hour, Trump is leading in Wisconsin, though the state is still too close to call. So let's talk about what's left. Battleground Michigan, now a must win for Hillary Clinton, and the state of Arizona still up for grabs this evening. Let's check in with Joe Fryer in Salt Lake City, a state now in Trump's column. Joe, what a night.
Yeah, that's right, Chanel. We're actually at an election night party here in Utah for a presidential candidate. That candidate, independent candidate, Evan McMullin, who is expected to take the stage here in just a few moments. He was on the ballot in only 11 states, but there was some thought heading into the election that he might be competitive here in Utah. Now, that may sound surprising. Utah is a solid red state, voted overwhelmingly for Mitt Romney in 2012 and hasn't voted for a Democrat in more than half a century. But there was a thought heading into this election that this year might be different. Why is that? Well, there's a large Mormon population here, and many were struggling with the idea of voting for Trump because of some of the controversial things that he said that opened the door for a strong third-party candidate. Enter McMullin, who lives here in Utah. He's an ex-CIA operative with conservative values that are in line with a number of people here, and polls in mid-October showed him running neck and neck in this race. But in the last week, polls showed Trump starting to break away, and the results coming in tonight show Trump overwhelmingly in front of both McMullin and Hillary Clinton, and he is the projected winner in this state. And of course, with the electoral vote so close this year, this was a must-win state for Donald Trump. So we expect to hear from McMullin shortly here. He says he hopes this is the beginning of a new conservative movement in this country. We'll have to wait and hear what he has to say. Chanel?
It's interesting, Joe, you just mentioned that. I actually interviewed Evan McMullin on MSNBC not too long ago, and he told me he wanted to build a new movement. Clearly, one thing is for sure, voters really throughout the country wanted change.
Yeah, that's right. Change seemed to really be on the ballot here. Now, you talk with the people who were here, they were seeing things sort of differently. These are a lot of traditional Republicans, traditional conservatives who say that they just couldn't bring themselves to vote for Donald Trump. So they don't see change the same way Donald Trump was. They see the conservative movement moving in a different direction. That's why they decided to align with McMullin. So some different theories here on tonight. A lot of folks we talked with at the polls today say they were very torn, conflicted about voting in this year's election. I spoke with one man who said he considered voting for McMullin, but in the end was concerned it might be a wasted vote. He, in the end, decided to vote for Hillary Clinton. Chanel?
Interesting. Very good report. Thank you, Joe, in Utah tonight. Joining us now to talk more about this is Jennifer Lawless. She's a professor at American University. I should mention she's written 4 books on women in politics, right?
Yes.
I think you might have your 5th book. We might be working on it. So we're on a roll here with, I'm getting so many questions from viewers. So if you don't mind, I'd like to tackle them. Why not? Sure. First of all, let's talk about Pennsylvania for a moment. Too close to call right now. I lived in Philadelphia for almost 10 years. And when I lived in Philadelphia, I learned the power of the ground game. It is strong. And so many people just assumed, especially, you know, with the big concert she had last night, I mean, so many people just knew that Hillary Clinton's ground game would be so strong.
Right, and there's also the general sense that Pennsylvania wasn't even really a battleground state anymore. Right. It was a blue state. I think that's no longer the case.
Very true. Another question, Tom Brokaw brought up a really good point that perhaps people who wanted to vote for Donald Trump didn't publicly admit it. Another random story, I remember I was on the subway platform in New York City and a woman had a Trump bag and people were rolling their eyes at her. I mean, she just got so much negative energy, if you will, but perhaps could it be onto something with that?
There could be. You know, we usually talk about social desirability and the fact that people will inflate their likelihood of saying they would vote for a woman or an African American, for example, because that's the right thing to say or do. I don't think we realize that it could work the reverse way with Donald Trump this time around.
And Hillary Clinton, one more question. It says, did voters just not like Hillary or did they assume she was going to win?
I think we know that there's a large chunk of the country that does not like her. And in a lot of these states that are closer than we expected, there was probably the expectation that she'd win.
So maybe a little bit of both.
Probably.
All right, Jennifer Lawless, thank you so much for talking with us again. I have a feeling we'll be here for a while. And just an update on Pennsylvania at this hour. Trump now has a 1,000-vote lead over Clinton in what was projected, as you mentioned, to be a solid blue state. So we will see you back here in about 30 minutes for another update. For now, we send it back to Lester Holt in our NBC News studio in New York for continuing coverage of Decision Night in America.
Welcome back. Democracy Plaza at Rockefeller Center. It's 12:30 in the East. There's the national vote as we have it based on the projections now. Trump leading 48 to 47%. That's the popular vote. But let's take a look now at the electoral vote. The race to 270, which is what we're witnessing right now. Trump right now sitting at 244, Clinton at 209. with a number of states here still too close to call that will turn this election before we all walk out of here. We're going to go to Hallie Jackson right now. Among the many things we're watching as this thing seems to be tilting toward Donald Trump, the markets around the world are reacting. She has more on that.
We're seeing a drop in some overseas markets, and we saw something really interesting happening in the S&P 500. I'm here with Ali Velshi to explain this. It was halted, then it
so there's two kinds of futures. We talk about the Dow futures a lot because there's a big Dow board that we can all look at.
And we saw a drop in those futures
We've seen those futures drop. They're down, indicating at this point a 4% drop. So if the Dow were to open right now, it would open about 760 points lower than when it closed. But really, for most people out there, your investments are in a broader set of investments that are more like the S&P 500. Now, this doesn't happen very much, but the S&P 500, they don't generally allow it in trading, the futures, to go below 5%. It hit the 5% floor, and there was some confusion out there about why it was not going below that. There was some word out that they were halted for the rest of the night. We've now got clarification. They're not halted, but they are not going to be allowed to go below 5%. Now,
they've dropped as much as
they've dropped as much as they're going to be permitted to drop. Now, why this is a problem is that on any given morning, Hallie, I can tell you at any point in the morning how the market is going to open based on futures trading. Tomorrow morning, I won't be able to, because we know that the Nikkei in Japan is down more than 6%. We know that Asian markets will be down. We see European markets, but we won't be able to trade these S&P futures. So now it becomes a guessing game as to how badly hit this market will be in the morning.
And so all of it, Ali, driven by the uncertainty that we're seeing right now in the presidential race?
That is correct. It's uncertainty, and I will remind people, when you're thinking about percentage drops...
I've got to interrupt you because I've got to toss it back to Lester here.
All right, we're going to make a projection right now, Hallie, as we go outside up the building. NBC News projects that Hillary Clinton will win the state of Nevada. 6 electoral votes. That's an important one for her. They're all important, as Chuck Todd points out this time, as her path to victory is very narrow. But there's the vote total, and that's where it leaves us right now in the race to 270. Clinton now at 215. Donald Trump with 244 in the race to 270. Chuck?
I have to tell you, the most realistic path she has to 270 is a bizarre one. It is winning Pennsylvania, which right now I believe she's down about 2,000 votes. If we go to Pennsylvania, she has to also win Michigan, which of course she's down, and she's got to win both of those CDs in Maine and Nebraska. That's the only way at this point, unless a surprise shows up at this point in Wisconsin, in Arizona. There's really no other point. But I want to go here. Do we have Pennsylvania just to show you how close it is? Look, Trump has taken nearly a 3,000 vote lead. There are a few areas where there's no vote at all that has come in. There's extraneous vote. I told you we are not going to call this until all the vote is in. And even then, we'll probably end up with a apparent winner. But boy, does Clinton need to turn this around. She needs to find there's a handful of precincts left in Philadelphia. She better hope there's a bunch of vote there. So let me look at this county. What we got here, it's Lebanon County. I'll just show you what it was in 2012, just so you have an idea. A red county that went big for Romney. So it's likely, she might do a little bit better here. This is a county right next to a state capital county, which she has been doing slightly better in. But I can tell you, with those two counties, maybe that leans Trump. But Pennsylvania, total coin flip. But obviously, if Pennsylvania goes, that's the ballgame.
Yep. All right. We want to get over to the Clinton headquarters right now, where Kristen Welker is standing by. We've seen a lot of long faces, even tears there. They just got likely a shot in the arm with that news that Nevada goes to Hillary Clinton. Kristen?
They did, Lester. There was cheering here at the Javits Center when this crowd learned that Secretary Clinton won Nevada. But I have to tell you that overall, the mood is quite somber. You can sense it. It's fairly quiet here. This is anything but a victory party. As you point out, people starting to leave early. They are in tears. A lot of red faces here, Lester, as they watch these results come in. One supporter describing it as stunned disbelief. Another person telling me grief is starting to set in. Of course, this race is not over yet, but perhaps one of the more telling signs is that the Clinton campaign has gone dark. The last time I heard from them, about 45 minutes ago, when officials were insisting there is still a path, and of course that path went through Michigan. It went through Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is her firewall. We've been saying this for days. That is why you've seen Secretary Clinton make so many stops to Pennsylvania. She added events in Michigan, really trying to energize the Obama coalition, African-American voters, women, minority voters, and of course she held that big rally in Philadelphia, that unity rally last night with the Obamas to try to energize that part of her base. So there's a lot of surprise here. They thought she was on the path to making history, the path to becoming the first female president. So all of that sinking in as they realize right now Donald Trump does have the lead. As you're talking about right now, she still has a narrow path, but as that path continues to get increasingly slim, this crowd here very somber tonight. Lester.
All right, this is a remarkably close race, at least some of these races. You want to take a look at New Hampshire, and Chuck's doing that right now. A minute ago, I looked, it was a 50, did I say a 15 vote difference?
It went up to all of it's a landslide now at 672 votes. But it was actually at 15 about a minute ago. Look, there's still a lot to come in. This is another one. We're just going to wait till all the votes come in. Literally,
how important is it, though, with four electoral votes?
Dixville Notch might actually swing at the end of the day. But you want to go there. Let's go to the what-if map here, and just to sort of everybody can see why all this matters here. Give it a minute here. I've got its business here. So we've locked in Nevada, so that gets her. So let's move this down here. And if you assume these four going that way, and that's a big assumption. As you can see, she can't lose anything. That gets her to 268, and she needs that district. She needs the district in here, which is not counted on this board, and she needs that main district. That's her only viable path to 270, unless a bunch of absentee votes in Wisconsin are a lot more of them in Milwaukee than we expected. But it's that it's that big. I mean, it is that narrow for her. She's got the more narrow path. Trump could end up winning with it Pennsylvania. He could do it just with a combination of Arizona and Michigan.
I want to get the thoughts of the panel as we look at this in that bright red in the middle of the country in the South. And is there, to what extent is there a racial component in this in terms of who is voting for Donald Trump and who's voting for Clinton?
Okay, this is a big split in this country. There's a big white to non-white split.
Because this is going to be a conversation going forward.
Do you realize that she's losing Texas by all of just 8 points? I mean, the fact of the matter is the Latino vote showed up in a big way for her. You don't put Texas to single digits without the Latino vote activating. You don't make Arizona, which we're sitting here waiting on Arizona, but it wasn't enough. I mean, this is. There was this, we all bought into it because Barack Obama did win twice with this new coalition. Now, she couldn't totally recreate it, but I think there was an assumption that the Latino vote is growing so much, it just made some of these states that they were just going to all keep moving towards the Democrats. And look at the Rust Belt.
Nicole, weigh in here.
Well, Peggy Noonan wrote the best piece of the cycle and a piece about the protected and the unprotected. And I think that what's going on, it's always important to have a conversation about where we are in race. But the truth is we elected the country's first African-American president not once but twice. This, to me, was more about class warfare. And there's probably a hot war underway that a lot of us here missed. People don't like being described as living in flyover nation. It's derogatory. And these sort of lines, and if there were walls in this country, they were really between the elites and Main Street.
It's a culture war.
It's a culture war, and not over the old things. The old culture war used to be fought over guns and abortion and social issues. It's a culture war that sort of subtly gets played out on the kind of media you watch, on the kind of newspapers you read, on where you get your information. I met some of the stars of Duck Dynasty at the Republican convention in Cleveland, and some of the brightest businessmen you'll ever meet. But they speak about sort of the prejudice that they feel when they walk around the streets in New York City, and they're big, media figures. But this culture war, this cultural elitism was the dynamic at play in Brexit, and there are a million ways that this is different. But the one similarity is that people felt so disconnected from their leaders that they were willing to burn down. Steve Schmidt said this downstairs, and it's true, not one political party, but two. I mean, Donald Trump is not a Republican. He's not a classic Republican. And the only people despairing more tonight than Hillary Clinton supporters are sort of the never-Trump Republicans who've been, you know, men and women without a country for many months.
Your former boss didn't vote for him.
He didn't vote, right.
The next Republican president of the United States, potentially, didn't have
Neither
a single living president, and
or
only
John McCain.
One former living nominee, Bob Dole, who publicly supported him.
You know, I have the advantage of spending a lot of time in the Midwest and also in the Mountain West. I've got a lot of pals in Montana and South Dakota. I just got back from there. And I didn't hear anybody out there. They weren't crazy about Donald Trump, but they really did not want Hillary Clinton to come back into the office. Not only they did not want her, they didn't want him back in the White House again. And they talked about it quite openly to me. So I really thought this whole election, to get back to your original point, Lester, about whether it's racial or not, it's been tribal warfare. I mean, we have been trying to compartmentalize this country. You know, I'm going to take the white working class vote, I'm going to hug them. I'm going to get the Hispanic vote. I'm going to get the African American vote. And it's been compartmentalized in a way. And both of them played that game. You know, let's fracture the country and hope that I end up with more parts than the other guy does. And that's not, in fact, anything that's going to help us get through what we're going to get through. So whoever wins tonight, we've got a long, tough road ahead of us.
Savannah, you brought some show and tell.
Oh, I was just saying I carry around my word clouds, and I remember the first time I saw this. Okay, so this is the word cloud for how people said they thought about Donald Trump: afraid, terrified, racist, bigot. Okay, so that looks pretty bad. Now take a look at Hillary Clinton's page. Sorry, my fingers are not working. No, but trust me, it's going to be worth it. Look at. People had this singular notion about her, that she was a liar and that she was not trustworthy. We talk about the racial element. Let's not miss the gender element here. I mean, it's the first female presidential candidate on a major party ticket. You have white males coming out in droves, and that's, it seems, when this history book is written on this, that's going to be a factor that really, really matters. And then you have also a lot of women who didn't support her either. So I think you're going to have a lot of reckoning in terms of what it means for race relations, but also for gender relations in this country.
And young women. I mean, I remember sitting down at the Today Show early summer or late spring with Andrea Mitchell talking about how young women felt absolutely no attraction to her candidacy, felt absolutely no, they were not compelled in any way, shape, or form to assist her in breaking this barrier. In fact, there were more millennials attracted to Bernie Sanders. So, you know, it's obviously going to take someone different if and when she doesn't break this barrier tonight.
No one has talked about this, but the Republicans have been in charge of the Congress for the last 2 years. They won the House and the Senate. And what did white working class America get from them? Zip.
Right.
Nothing. Nothing happened.
Right.
They sat there and they ordered one investigation after another. They tried to repeal Obamacare at one time after another. They didn't do anything proactive for the white working class. So along comes Donald Trump, runs not just against the Democrats, he runs against his own party that has control of the Congress. And that, we all miss the impact of that because it kept unfolding and kept unfolding, and we kept thinking it'll catch up to him at some point, and he would always recover, no matter how vulgar he was, no matter how outrageous he was, because they were interested in getting at what they see as their enemy.
But some of this, actually, it is interesting, some of this, and I remember something Tom Friedman said on the Meet the Press set. Excuse me for quoting the show, but hey, it is on your show, pal. And he said, you know, he said, there's this sense that the fact that Washington was stuck, couldn't really get anything done, was another reason that Trump is this antidote for it. Even if he burns it down, it will. I think there are voters who think
maybe that's the point.
That's the point. It'll be rebuilt differently, and ultimately, that's what it is. By the way, Trump got a big assist here too, and I think that we forget. And I've had some consultants remind me of this, and they absolutely are right. The NRA. Donald Trump didn't get a lot of help from major Republican institutions.
But the NRA.
But he did from the NRA, and they came through big. This is a big night for the NRA because I think Trump owes him owes them, number one.
They bought a lot of time.
And they just bought a Supreme Court seat. I mean, that's a big deal.
We're going to take a break as we do so. Take a look at that in the upper right corner of your screen. Those faces at the Clinton headquarters say it all about where they feel the direction of this night is heading. But we are not there. We're not anywhere right now. The race to 270, Trump at 244, Clinton 215. We will be back with more of our coverage, Decision Night in America on NBC. The states are going to be making this a very long night as we approach the 1 o'clock hour here very shortly on the East Coast. Right now, Donald Trump holds a lead. He's 26 electoral votes from being voted in as the next president of the United States. Welcome back to NBC election headquarters. Joined now again by James Carville. Good to have you here. You've been watching.
I wish I could say it's good to be here. But
yeah, not turning out the way I know you want. Walk us through what has happened from the Democratic view.
Well, I mean, everything that you would think you needed to do. We had a great convention, great debates. We had a great GOTV effort. And Trump came through and had a nationalistic, nativist message, and a lot of people responded to it. And the Democrats, by the way, got all of their vote out. I mean, everything that you cannot blame the Democrats for not showing up and voting, But
did you have a candidate? Did you have a candidate that was far more deeply flawed than you knew?
You know, I think what she believed in is that preparation and hard work, and that you could shape a future through making some changes. She didn't have that sort of direct message that really had appeal to people. And also, she had been in politics all of her life. People knew her as being in politics, and that happens to be a very unpopular profession right now.
There's a pretty important question that presidential candidates have to answer.
Right.
Why do you want to be president? Right. I'll be honest with you. It was something I bugged the Clinton campaign about. I said, what's the answer? What is it? And I remember asking her what her big idea was, and she goes, that we're stronger together.
Right.
It wasn't an idea. That was a sentiment.
Right.
I get it. Why did she? Do you think she ever ever figured out a good answer?
I think that her nature is that she believes that the country has multiple problems to attack. And there's just not one simple thing that you do. When Trump came in, he had a simple thing. He had a very simple thing that he was going to do. And the power of a message, overcame the power of a turnout operation. And I think, by the way, other people on the Democratic side voiced the same concern that you did. But what they had is a masterful technical campaign, but it didn't have that sort of strong emotional message, and he had the change message. It's hard to be more change than Trump.
Let me get down to Florida and bring in Jose Diaz-Balart, anchor at Telemundo and a weekend edition of NBC Nightly News. Jose, the story of this election, win or lose for Hillary Clinton, will be the Latino vote. We saw it come out certainly in a strong way in Nevada. Yeah. What's the read on Florida, which of course went to Donald Trump tonight?
Well, Lester, good evening. I think that what James was talking about the fact that the people who came out to vote for Hillary Clinton came out to vote en masse. In other words, the Hispanic community, for example, came out strong for Hillary Clinton on a national level. If we look at what happened in South Florida, specifically with the Cuban-American vote, which Donald Trump carried tonight, it's because in that group, even those that have supported President Obama's decision to open relations with the Cuban regime, see the last moves that the administration made vis-a-vis Cuba as being unilateral, that there was nothing in return from the Cuban government to, give the United States the reason to open up relations further. I think in the Cuban-American vote, that's what caused the support for Donald Trump. But throughout the country, we have seen record numbers of Latinos voting. Just in the state of Florida, Lester, 38% of the Latinos that voted in early voting had never voted before. And yet, clearly wasn't enough in Florida, and it may not be enough in other states.
Jose Diaz-Balart, good to see you, Jose. Thanks very much.
Good
we
to
will
see
take
you.
a break.
Thanks.
We continue to watch and wait for the dramatic conclusion of Decision 2016 on this Decision Night in America. We'll be right back.
I'm Chanel Jones in the NBC News Washington Bureau. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, and the race for president is still undecided. NBC News is projecting Hillary Clinton to win the state of Nevada, picking up 6 electoral votes. But in the race to 270, she trails Donald Trump by 29 electoral votes. The state of Pennsylvania at this hour, still too close to call. Wisconsin, another state still in play, and that's where we find Kelly O'Donnell in Janesville, the hometown of Speaker Paul Ryan, who won again tonight. Kelly, what can you tell us?
Well, Chanel, the speaker, it appears, has just gone home to bed because we watched as the security detail headed out the door after a night of surprises. He, of course, won his own seat, and Ron Johnson, the incumbent Republican senator, was really a dark horse to win a second term in the United States Senate, and he did. And now many Republican supporters who are still stragglers here are very excited about the prospects for a Republican victory in Wisconsin. It has not been called yet. The last time Republicans carried Wisconsin in a presidential election, Ronald Reagan was up for re-election. So if Republicans in this state have success tonight, you can bank on the fact that Governor Walker, Reince Priebus, the chairman of the RNC, and the House Speaker have a lot of credit in that because they brought together resources and ground game and strategy, and a lot of outside groups began to pour money into this state to try to save that Senate seat for Ron Johnson. And with that comes the boost, perhaps to other Republicans, perhaps to Donald Trump. He did not win Wisconsin in the primary. You may remember that. So this is a race people are still watching closely. And if Donald Trump is successful here, it is a part of that sort of Great Lakes industrial Midwest bloc that he was trying to tap into. Surprising for a Republican at this time, but we're watching to see what's happened. Now, I can tell you, we're watching, but they're tearing down this room behind me, Chanel. It's just about midnight Central Time, and the flags are gone down, and they're packing up all the supplies from what was a very happy party for Speaker Paul Ryan tonight. Chanel?
I'm actually pretty surprised. I thought for sure they would still be sticking around, biting their fingernails. I thought there would be a little bit more excitement. We should probably mention, Obama carried it in 2008 with 56% of the vote, and then in 2012, Obama carried Wisconsin for 53% of the vote. So if it goes Donald Trump's way, there will be a lot of conversation in Wisconsin about what happened.
Absolutely. And in strongholds for Democrats, like around Madison, where the university is, the state capitol, those are places where, from the operatives we've been talking to, the vote has not been fully tallied. And the strong parts of the state for Republicans, Waukesha County, that vote has come in. So this could be a nail biter. It is expected to go into the night. We expect that on big election nights. The fact that they're packing up the room, I guess they feel pretty good about it here, and so some of the supporters have decided to go home. But we will watch for this. Speaker Ryan did not respond to questions. I shouted sort of at him in the ballroom to try to get his attention. He declined to comment on Trump's strength tonight or the state of the race. We expect in the coming days, Speaker Ryan will have some comments about the next president he'll be working with from Capitol Hill.
All
Chanel?
Right. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell. Hopefully they keep the lights on so you can still do some live reporting for us. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Chanel.
All right, joining us now is Jennifer Lawless from American University. What do you make of this?
The night did not go as anybody planned. I mean, it's not over yet, but the path to 270 is looking incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for Hillary Clinton.
Let's talk about the gender factor for a moment. Was it sexism when so many women, frankly, didn't vote for her? Especially if we look at some of the numbers here. She got 54% of the women vote?
She did. She did get 90% of Democratic women, though. She got close to 90% of Democratic men. So really what it comes down to are those independents. And she did do better than Donald Trump among independent women, but he won by a substantial margin among independent men.
I think this is interesting, too. Trump, did I read this right? He got 89% of Republican women.
Yes, and 90% of Republican men.
What does that say?
It means that partisanship really trumps anything. And it didn't matter. The sexist comments didn't matter. The Billy Bush tapes didn't ultimately matter. At the end of the day, Republicans went home.
This is something we'll be talking about in the days and months ahead. Jennifer Lawless, thank you. You know what? We want to take a live look now at Hillary Clinton supporters at her watch party in New York City. You can only imagine. Look at these women. A lot of anguish on their faces in what has been a very tough night for the Clinton campaign. Obviously, they're there. A lot of tears tonight. We will see you again in about 30 minutes. For now, though, we toss it back to Lester Holt in our New York studios for continuing coverage of Decision Night in America.